second time today, official welcome from my side. And I was the first to open, so I had to say big thanks for getting up early. Now I get to say thanks for staying here till the last program. So I'll start by that. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating because we have with us Kiki Streitberger.
Thank you.
I do hope, give me a sign who has already seen the exhibition It's Time to See to Be Seen. Great, so that's like an inspiration for all of the others. I don't think you can make it tonight. Should you? When does it close? Yeah, okay, no, that's going to be tight. You'll have to do that during the week.
You can.
You should.
Exactly.
Also.
Now.
Okay, so Kiki is a trained photojournalist and photographer, and her work Zugvo is being shown at this exhibition. So after getting a glimpse of it today, please go and have a look in more detail. But we always do a warm-up round. So, first question, 3 adjectives to describe Chennai.
Cowy, would that make it one? It's full of cows. It's my first thought all the time.
It's late, so we get to be creative. We go for cowy.
Cowy, colorful, fabulous.
Okay. India has been photographed a lot. What is a cliche, and yet you took it since you arrived?
I took a picture of a Ganesh sculpture, but in my defense, it had a gecko sitting on its nose, which I found kind of cool. But it is a cliche.
Any other ones that you want to confess?
Oh yeah, cows.
Also,
you were waiting for that, right?
I was trying to find areas which have maximum amount of cows. Does anyone want to pitch in? I could only come up with Tinagar and the whole cow controversy in commercial streets.
I'm gonna go there. Bring on the cows.
Probably Mylapore.
Mylapore around the temple?
Yeah.
Could be.
I think
about it. If you can come up with high intense cow regions in Chennai that are reachable from here, please do recommend.
Preferably with golden horns. I think it's so attractive.
That's very specific, but yeah, let's see what we can do.
It's so attractive, so attractive.
Then the last question is very easy, tea or coffee?
Normally coffee, but here tea.
Ooh, that's not going well. Chennai is a coffee town.
Is it?
It is.
Oh. I didn't notice it yet.
The Germans, we need to do more intercultural in the beginning. We did the same problem this morning.
Okay, sorry, you said the same? Oh, good.
Okay, so we start with the very easy question. The theme of the Photo Biennale this year is why photograph? Mm-hmm. Everyone has a different answer to it, but what got you into photography? Why are you taking pictures?
Well, brilliant that I haven't heard any other answers. Now the stress is enormous. Well, I've kind of always liked photography since I was small. My uncle was working for Kodak and he gave us films, and flash cubes was a thing at the time, to flash. So I always thought it was great. I just didn't realize it could be a job until very much longer. At uni, I studied in England and it was possible to do a major and a minor subject. So I thought at the time acting would be great. So I did drama as major and photography as a minor subject. Neither of us, I thought, would ever be a job, but you know, that's how it is in the UK. You just study whatever. And then much later, there were loads of other things I did in main photojournalism and documentary photography, and I realized it is a job. It's nice. So yeah.
So it's like a family...
Well, it was always an interest thing, but it's, at some point, you know, you have to then write something when you want to go and do an MA. You have to write why you're interested, and I said, well, to tell other people's stories, not just my own, which is also easy because you can hide behind the camera. You don't have to bother too much about yourself, and you get to meet loads of people. So in the end, maybe curiosity as much as anything, which I know is mundane, it should be deeper, but sorry.
Did you have any specific photographer who inspired or whose work inspired you?
Well, I used to always read Geo magazine when I was young, growing up. So I like reportages, and it was that. But all the ones that inspired me when I started are actually the ones I'm no longer very inspired by, so can I not answer that?
That would be interesting though.
I know, but you know, I don't know who knows who. So, no, I genuinely don't know. because it changes all the time.
Can get back to that later.
Oh, thanks.
So we're going to introduce two projects, or we're going to speak about two projects in a bit more detail. The first one is the one that's actually being exhibited right now in Chennai, which is called Zugvo, which in English means migratory bird. And just for those of you who haven't seen it, we did bring, and this is not working. Thank you so much. We did bring 3 pictures from the show. No. No.
That's another.
That's another project. Can you go through it? Till you get to Zugvögel. There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So maybe you could say something about the project in general first,
Yeah.
and then about the composition.
Well, it's a project about farm workers in Germany. So, you know, for me it started, I like strawberries. I wanted to know where they come from, who picks those, because somebody has to, and So I just went to a big strawberry field, saw some people, and I followed them home in the evening to find out. And then I wanted to know how much they earn.
That's basically stalking.
It is exactly that. But you know, stalking is kind of
For the art, fine.
Well, stalking is part of the job, really. You want to know more, so you go. So, so I went to this first farm, which was really not very nice. So I thought, that needs to be exposed, it's a problem. And so I met those people, they introduced me to other people on different farms, different produce, different things. And the next year I went again, and then asparagus came and other fruits and veg.
So it's a project that started with personal curiosity. It was
Yeah.
not commissioned. It was
No.
not. You didn't start with a strategy. It started with like a.
I just wanted to know. I wanted to make a very small project about strawberries,
Okay.
because why not?
Do you remember if she's on a strawberry?
No,
farm?
she's asparagus.
Asparagus.
I mean, she also does strawberries. Strawberry and asparagus often come together.
True.
But she does mainly asparagus, even though she prefers the strawberries, it's less hard.
Maybe you could show the two other. We give you some time to. We give you a second to read it.
In Germany, they always come from Eastern Europe, just because wages are lower in Eastern Europe, so it makes sense for them to come. And I think as Germans, we are very odd. In every single project I've done with Germans, you have one half of the people that say, oh, we're exploiting those people, this is awful. And we have the other part who says, they're stealing our jobs, this is awful. I was like, it's neither. It is all the people I spoke to, because they're in the European Union, for them it was great to come. And if it's a good farm, I mean, on the bad farms, no. But on a good farm, many of them have come back 12, 13, 14 years, always to the same farm, with the same people, because in 6 weeks working on the farm, they earn more than a whole year at home in a trained profession, which is unbelievable. So, and of course, we're very happy that they come.
I was just going to say, what I really like about the project is technically they remain invisible. No? You know that they're there. There are those political discussions about the migrant workers and, you know, should Germans do the job or not? But they always remain the migrant workers. You never have a name, you never have a story. So the fact that you went and changed that, and for those of you who haven't seen it, each story is told in, if I could say so, 3 parts. It's one, the portrait, the text, and then you also have photos around showing the circumstances, the farm, the product. So it's kind of like a storytelling.
Yeah.
Each individual gets their entire story told in those 3 different versions. So why did you choose that?
Because, well, I start with the portrait. I took the portraits this way because, well, as you say, we don't really see them to start with. But also on the first farm, they had curtains hanging so that the flies don't come in and out. And I was like, oh, that's good, because we don't really see you. So you're behind something, there's always something, and they're just down the road, but we don't really see them. And also, I found it visually very nice, because it's very Eastern European looking to me. To me, it's an aesthetic that suits this thing. But yeah, that is that. The text to me is as important as the pictures. I find pictures without text sometimes, well, I find it as important. I find it sometimes a bit lacking because it's open to interpretation then, which in this case, their story, I want them to tell their story. Which is also why I wanted, and I'm very grateful it is like that, the text in its own frame. So the text sits at equal weight next to the image. And the pictures around it, of course, it would be, you wouldn't know how asparagus grows maybe, or you wouldn't know how the circumstances are. You couldn't imagine how many people work there if you didn't see how many bananas I have on the table. Or, did you see the picture with the bananas?
Yes.
I love this picture very much. That is their dessert on a day, the pile of bananas.
And I also think it's an interesting juxtaposition because while you're showing what's there, they speak about what's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be speaking about leaving their families behind. They would be speaking about being on the phone, which is something you cannot document.
Exactly.
Because there's the geographical distance. So it's a nice way to kind of bridge it if people take the time to actually look at all parts of the artwork.
Yeah, thank you. Good thought.
What's been the reaction to this? You're not showing it for the first time. You showed parts of it in
I've
Germany
shown
as well.
parts of it before, but well, yeah, the reactions were like, oh wow, yes, I never thought of meeting those people. I really think it is something we don't think about. We take it so for granted that the food is there. And so yes, it has been very positive, the reactions, even though a great German magazine wanted to publish it with the portraits. And then loads of things happened in the world as they do. And they ended up just photographing the surrounding pictures without the portraits. They just took the name and photographed, and took just the surrounding pictures, which I lost a bit of love for it at that point, for the whole project. But yeah, it was still positively received, but that's not my project. That's not what I wanted to do.
And just like a bit of intercultural context, basically asparagus and strawberry, that's like mango season. So it's like the culinary highlight of the German calendar. So everyone very much waits for that to happen. And yet the people who are responsible for it, because it's highly, it's work intense.
Very.
And no one wants to do it because it's exhausting. So the people who do it remain invisible, but they are like a political token that people fight about.
It's true, but it's not just exhausting. You also have to be really skilled. All the farmers told me that I would not get the job because I wasn't very good. For the strawberries, I was too slow. And for the asparagus, you really have to cut it in the ground. You can't see the bottom of it. So you have to go down and cut it at the bottom. And if it's too short, it's useless because it's a relatively expensive vegetable. So yeah, I wouldn't get the job. But I one more thing, why the Germans don't do the job. I was asking them the same, because I said, okay, we have so many refugees in Germany, people say they don't work, why don't they do the job, or Germans? And the farmer said, no, they're not good enough, we don't want them to come. We tried this, they have a backache after 5 minutes, and then we have all the vegetables and fruit rotting on the field, so no.
So yeah, people do forget it's a skilled job. Even though it's working, everyone's like working on the fields, anyone can do it, but you actually need skills, especially for those fruits.
Yeah.
I forgot to say this in the beginning. It's a small group. Anytime you have a question or a comment, I'm not sure if that's a question or a comment.
It was a wave. Or just shout. I mean, we're so few.
Just shout.
Just come and shout.
Yeah. No. I was just curious when you said about magazine appropriating your work in any way because they did not choose to use the portrait when a magazine wrote about your work. Was that what you were mentioning?
Sorry.
Die Veröffentlichung, wo die Porträts rausgelassen worden sind und nur die drumherum.
When they took the photos of only surroundings and not portrait, and you felt sad about them only using.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe when they reach out, is it possible that you tell them primarily that if at all you want to cover this, you take the portraits or you don't do the story?
Well,
because
it would have been possible, but then we were going along with it, with the portraits. They actually also sent me back to do a few more portraits. And then something happened. You know, there's always a big world event that takes precedence over some strawberry farmers or whatever. And they had to cut the space down, and then they didn't want the portraits anymore because to them the story about the farmers and the farm workers in general was more important than wasting a lot of space on the portraits. And by that point, because they'd already sent me back, I could not do anything. So
it was a last-minute editorial change.
Yeah, it was. So it was no malice. They're nice people on the whole.
Something that I do that time is I tell them on the first email only that I would not do the story if you don't include these images.
Yeah, but I did think they were included. Everything was planned for them to be included until literally the last minute. Then something happened. They had to postpone it by 2 weeks. And by that point, there was not that much space in the magazine because things had changed. Those things happened. But I really, now I would be cooler about it. But when I first did it, I was like, meow, spoke my whole thing. You took the name, you ran with it, and then you didn't even use what it is.
Anyone else?
I also wanted to ask you, because you've seen the exhibition It's Time, and there's Pratna Singh who did those portraits on the wrestlers. And when she gave her talk, for her it was really important that the wrestlers were included in the project. They got to choose, do they want to be in workout outfit? Do they want to be in casual outfit? Do they want to be with like a training partner? Do they want to pose by themselves only? So they kind of got to choose how their picture goes into the world, if you want to say it like that. So for me that was really interesting because it's really more this idea of co-creation than like the object-subject thing. So I was wondering how you worked with the people you portrait.
Well, this particular project, yes, they could not choose the pose.
Okay.
Obviously, I mean, not everybody chose just to stand straight. They could choose the curtains.
Okay.
So I had a big box.
Did they all like the curtains?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Come on, there are loads of people on a farm. I'm not forcing anybody. I was also not forcing anyone to tell me their story.
No, but I would be like, oh, that's fun, but I wouldn't like aesthetically like the curtain.
Okay.
So those are like...
No, they like the concept.
That's
because
right.
they said, okay,
Sure.
you don't see me, that is true. And I'm this person behind. But they also like to actually tell their story. They like that, okay, look guys, we're important for you. We're not just those people you hide away somewhere.
As I said that in the guided tour, for me those curtains are very much my grandma's generation.
Yeah, that's exactly
so
what they
like
are. But
yeah, no.
I also, you know what? I've come to love those kind of curtains. Not like I have any on my window, but with that project, there's a difference in quality and some are so beautiful. I really, really like them a lot, how they frame a face and how they're behind. So, and to you, they're your grandma's generation. They come from Romania. They're still very, very current.
True. So you kind of proposed the setup, and then whoever wanted to be part of the project could be part of the project.
Yes, but I was usually on all the farms, you know, several times, not just once. So they knew me. They had time to think about it. We were also talking about other things, and I was where they're staying, and I met. Some of them had friends and family on other farms, so I met up with them and whatever. It's not, you don't just go in and say, okay, now tell me your life story, I take a picture, and now I'm buggering off and you never see me again. Not so nice.
Did they all have a chance to see the work?
Yes.
Only digital, or did they have a chance to see it exhibited?
They haven't seen it exhibited because it was not anywhere nearby.
Pandemic, no?
I've given them prints and they've seen pictures of the exhibitions. This one I will have to send as well. But I'm also in touch with a lot of them. So, no, they're really cool. I enjoyed meeting them. And I also enjoyed meeting a lot of the farmers because while there are some really awful ones, there are amazing people who really go a long way to make it good for their people. And even during COVID, when nobody could come, there was one farm in particular. They were allowed to have like a bubble, and because the people couldn't leave the farm, they opened a shop there, which no extortionate pricing. I've been asked this before. No, normal prices, but just so they have every single thing they would need on the farm, because farmers know they need them. So if you treat them well, those people will come back. It's a collaboration.
Any questions on the Zugvögel?
I just wanted to ask, as a photographer, when we document communities that are already facing challenges, how do you feel about your role as going beyond a photographer to also try and see if there might be any possibilities of connecting them with some other organizations, and whether there was some other kind of activities that they might like to pursue? Of course, there are regulations on their stay and everything, but in case if they were interested in pursuing something else other than farming, is that even a possibility? And like, I also feel like sometimes it's a fine line in being a photographer, and does it also enter the space of activism to a certain extent, and whether this is activism or whether this is just part of your relationship with them, and how far does it extend?
Well, the ones that are on a good farm, they will voluntarily come back every year. They want to be there. They're very grateful for the job because they earn good money. They're there with their friends. They bring their families. They're having a good time. So for them is no need. They are really happy with the situation. But the first farm I went to was horrible. So 2 people decided to never come back to Germany, and for 2 others I organized another job, and they're still in Germany working in something entirely different, not to do with farms, because I felt that farmer was exploiting his people so much, so I was trying to get them all out, and he can do his own thing now. As far as I'm concerned, he probably has new people now, but I don't know.
But I do think we can get back to that question when we speak about the second project. Because Traveling Light, that is a community that doesn't have access to a lot of things. So there I think the question also makes sense to say, like, how is the power relation between the photographer and the subject? So I'm really sorry, you would have to go back to the beginning. I'm sorry, yes, next, perfect.
Yeah.
So this is another project of yours, which is called Traveling Light. And it's a project on the refugee movement, the refugee crisis, whichever wording people, depending on their political position, decide to choose. And you decided to not document or not take photos of the people, but to ask them to bring something that they have been carrying till that moment that means something for them, and allow you to document that. So like a shift from the person to the stories behind it. And again, you have done text, but maybe you could say how you started this project.
Well, it's not just some of the items. These are all the items they have left from home. This is all they have left from the life they had to leave behind, which is remarkably little. And they, of course, he was also wearing some clothes, but they no longer existed. They were broken. So all he has left is that money, some cream, some tablets, a lighter from the shop he used to have. That's the stuff. And it's not very much. So how I started this project, again, you always start from something that interests you. And when I was a child, my dad's family lived in Eastern Germany, and there was a chance to flee before you couldn't anymore, basically, as you know. And my uncle always told the story of how he had to leave a bicycle behind, and he couldn't tell anybody, and he couldn't say goodbye to his friends. And ever since I was a child, that really moved me and upset me, that you can't say to anyone, and you had a good bike and you leave it. So I initially started meeting those people, and I said, what did you have to leave behind? And who could you not say goodbye to where you wish you could have? And from then it started, and they started, saying, look, all I have is this and I have that. And then it became a project by finding out what do people have. And some people have literally only one item left from home. And this item, it grows so much in importance. It's not about the value. It is all your life before. It's all your memory. It's your home. Every single thing is in this one item that you have. And what was the question?
How did you find them? And how long did you, because I mean, usually they arrive, they are specific places, and then they are redistributed. So it's also hard to stay in contact sometimes. You don't get a German phone number, you use your brother's cousin's friend's phone. I mean, it's hard to kind of start a sustainable relationship.
No. If you remember that time, all the Germans that didn't want the refugees to come all said, well, they don't need our money, they all have a mobile phone. And that is true. A lot of them had a mobile phone because they needed a mobile phone. You need to be in touch with your family at home, you need to know where people are. So the being in touch wasn't a problem. The language occasionally was, but that can be overcome. And I'm still in touch with a vast amount of them. I kind of know where they are. I know I meet them when I go to Germany. And which is why when people say, oh yeah, integration didn't work and that didn't work, I say, well, a lot of them I know are studying, are working, have a German passport by now. They are perfectly integrated. It's just, it is on us how we integrate people. It's not, oh, we can't integrate people. No, if you give them a chance, if you find small enough spaces rather than creating ghettos, I mean, we should be very happy. We haven't got enough people as it is.
Which object surprised you?
One woman had a relatively expensive belt. And I was like, huh? And her husband had, I think he had spoons and all sorts of things. But they also didn't come on such a small boat, they came on a much bigger boat. And then he had sort of spoons and a pillowcase and all sorts of things. And I said, what is that? Yeah, well, you know, you don't want to put your head on this thing and you want to take your own spoon. It's like, okay. But of course, if you have the option, if the boat is big enough, and if you can take it because it fits in your backpack, maybe I would do the same. I don't know.
I think it's a good question to ask. I mean, what are the 5 things you would take if you have enough time to make a choice?
That's the thing. If you have a time to make a choice, you cannot ever come up with 5 items. The point is, they had no time to make a choice. It was a case of grab whatever. So if we'd have all the time to think about the 5 items, oh my God, we will never, ever, ever come to a conclusion. Come on, it's absolutely impossible. But that is the thing. They would have possibly never chosen those items, but since they have those items, they have become so important, so they are the ones they have, and they are amazing to them.
How many of those pictures did you take? How large is the series?
I can't remember, it's a whole book, which I brought for you. It's in my bag.
Great, visit me if you want to see the book. Yeah, if not.
I'm just curious, do you remember when was the first time you met? Where was the first time you met and you started doing it?
This one, it was in 2015. In Europe, there was a massive crisis of Syrians coming to Europe. And then there was this thing, Angela Merkel was the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of Germany at the time. And she allowed them in. And
where did you meet them first time?
where I met them, in my mum's village. I was walking down the road and there was one, and I said, excellent. We had a little chat and he said, I'm from Syria. And I said, excellent, I have a few questions. And that's, you only ever have to meet one person, and from there you can meet other people.
So it was a matter of chance you met?
Yeah.
I was wondering, I was assuming, was it a protest or was it a demonstration?
No, it's a very, very small place. There is no protest, not enough people for a protest. No, he was walking down the road, and you talk to people and you say hello, and I've never seen you before, and what do you do, and blah blah blah, and I'm from Syria and so on, and I live there. And then I said, oh excellent, can I come round and ask you questions? He said, sure, when? Now if you're free. So
also, the first refugee wave in Germany was actually greeted with a lot of positive, we want to help. Angela Merkel's favorite sentence of, we are capable of doing this as a nation, wir schaffen das. There was a very positive, everyone was speaking about the welcoming culture, which of course was only ever true for one part of society. But the first wave of refugees actually had this positive, integrating small villages, made an effort to find empty houses. So and now we are a few years further down the road, and like everywhere else, it has changed a bit. But yeah, that was a very...
Of course, you can't imagine it. People would actually wait at railway stations and clap. That would not really happen anymore. But that's kind of like with the farm workers. I think as Germans, we are always either all for it or all against it. There is never anything in the middle with us, is there? No. Either we clap or we moan. So.
Any questions on this project, or any more questions? Also, I guess, Shuchi, that does answer your question, because it was not in a refugee camp. It was not in a situation where people didn't have a next step. It was actually someone who was already in a village.
But yes, to come to your question again, of course it extends further. You know those people then. You know they have a problem. One of them had mental difficulties at the time, so I took her to see doctors and psychologists, and I arranged for her to have a work placement. And of course you do. You know those people, you care for those people, you want them to have a good time. You don't want them to, having suffered a lot already, to suffer any more where they are. So that comes with it. I think photography without that, to me, is exploitation. I don't want to do any of that, personally.
That's a good, for the next topic.
Lead on.
Thank you so much. One question would be, I mean, those are all your personal projects that you did as a photographer, as an artist, but you also do commissioned work. Mm-hmm. Do you have the time, the funding to build the same kind of relationship when you do commissioned work? Or is that really completely different genres, and then working styles as well that you're working in?
Well, yeah, there is commissioned work, but it usually, in my case, often builds on something I started with before, and then somebody commissions me to do more of it. So most projects I do, I'm now going through them in my head, but most things, they take longer. So yes, I know the people, but not everybody needs as much help or whatever. I mean, that's not the point. That depends what kind of society it is. But I do try, even if it's something small commissioned to a kids magazine, I want to give this child all my attention while I'm doing this project. I'm in touch with a lot of them. I'm always sending them the magazine. I want them to, get some strength, say, okay, you are worth to read about you, that other children read about you. So hopefully that'll just give them a push in life, and they will remember it as a good day or a good event. And I feel like that with most projects. I don't really do product photography or something who I can't talk to.
That is, if you haven't had a chance to read her CV, it literally says likes to work with dogs and children.
Yeah,
so
animals and children.
If ever you need someone who likes to work with dog and children, Kiki Streitberger might be your person.
Absolutely.
I wanted to speak about, because you also do travel photography, and since you're part of a show that's only women, and it still comes with a lot of prejudices, stereotypes, did you ever experience specific challenges or stereotypes as a female photographer in travel photography?
That is, I told you before. I know it's not what you want to hear, but no. I actually.
That's great.
I personally, no. You see, when I was much younger, I always thought, I wish I was a boy, you're much better, you can do things, you're more empowered, you're stronger. And I find that's totally not true. As a woman, you have more access to places. As a woman, you're less threatening. People will allow you in. Other people will do their very best to look after you, even more than you would even want to. So you are, I think, much safer. You have much more access. You have much closer relationships with people. And you see more. I think it's a total benefit.
You also feel you get any job you want?
Probably not, but the ones I get, I really like. It's, I don't know the ones I don't get. So, of course, In fact, there are lots of them that I don't get, but I'm not sure it's because I'm a woman or because lots of people want them. So, but particularly with regards to travel, I do see it as a benefit. You have so much more insight into a society. I mean, in so many societies, men can't photograph women, men can't go into people's houses, and as a woman you can. And the added benefit is you can also go where the men go, so as a woman you can do both. And you can report on men's activities from a woman's perspective, which is also very interesting.
I think that's the most positive perspective we've had on this. So
I know, probably
I'll take it.
Sounding, I know, but
and yet, last question from my side, and then I'm happy to share the floor. We've been asking this a lot as well because it was a conscious decision to say one show is only there for female photographers because they don't get enough visibility. There's still, it's more difficult to be shown. And that's also because institutions do not make enough effort to change that. So now you have the chance, you have Chennai Photo Biennale present, you have the Goethe Institute present. How should institutions act differently? How can we be part of that change? What would you, if you could make a wish?
well, I mean, you are doing it already, so by putting on a show for women. And I think there have been a lot of very positive movements. There are lots of Women Photograph is a movement like this. There are lots of groups that make women's photography visible, not just women's stories, but also women's photographers, the whole package, both of it. And I think it is so important because it shows things from a different perspective. So, yeah, keep doing this, but of course not just women. I think all kind of marginalized groups, voices we haven't heard, like viewpoints we haven't seen, that kind of, yeah, just basically make it inclusive. The world is full of different people. I mean, yeah, we're all here, look at us, we're all a bit different. So if all of us can have a say and use our perspective to show it, because if we only ever have one type of perspective of a white male, for example, looking at the world, we only ever get the same stories. So, yes.
So I lied, I do have a last question.
Oh.
Which I just realized.
What is it?
Because I didn't ask this morning. You're also part of, I need to check one, which is Women Photograph. Yeah.
Women Photograph, the one I just mentioned, yes.
And I realized also Zina this morning is part of different collective female groups. And when we were looking for curation, there are a lot of collectives right now, and especially female collectives active. Is that really like a moment of solidarity? Is it like a pragmatic thing? How does that change, and what does it bring to your work?
I think it's a great thing because, you know, I sound so naive because I really like a lot of things. I'm fully aware of it. But it is great because you can ask questions, you actually get an answer. If you're in a mixed photographers group where the vast majority are men, the answers are not very good or not very helpful. Unless you're asking something technical, then you get a great answer, but it's usually not a technical question I have. It is, you know, I think us as women, would you agree, we're more willing to share contacts, more willing to talk about things. I find I very much enjoy working with women, talking with women, sharing experiences with women, which doesn't mean I don't like men, but I really don't like male photographers much.
Okay, so very good closing statement.
Sorry, I hope you didn't record this.
Everything is being recorded at Chennai Photo Biennale. Everything.
It might help for everybody to understand what is it about the male photographer that irks you.
Well, wherever.
Let's be more specific in the dislikes.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's nothing personal. No, but wherever you go, you walk along with the camera, you mind your own business. It's always a man who says, nice camera you got there. You go, I'm a photographer, you know. It's like, oh, great. Yeah. Oh, you get it. So, you know. And then you say, oh, that's very nice. And he says, no, I mean, I'm a professional photographer. I say, oh, good. And if you still don't engage, then they says, I photographed a wedding before. We go, okay. But they just don't stop, and then they talk about what lens you use and what. It's such technical questions. And when we heard the talk earlier about how children photograph, I think I'm a bit more like that. I photograph absolutely everything because I like it, and it doesn't matter so much if it's not 100%, as long as I can feel it. But so those questions always put me on the spot. I don't know what to say. I feel totally inept, and I'm a bit bored by them, really. So don't ask those questions if you're a male photographer. Please.
Does anyone else want guidance for life? How to behave when to meet a female photographer?
Yeah, just don't do that.
I would like to add something.
Please, please.
Please
has
add.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just want to add, because you also mentioned the collectors. It might be a bit provocative if you don't take it personally.
No.
Because like before you made it seem like, oh, being a woman photographer working is not a problem at all.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I meant only the traveling context.
Okay, because I was going to be like, well, why are you part of these collectors?
No.
Okay.
No.
And I think, like, I wouldn't agree with you that I don't like male photographers in general. And also, like, not even, but I get it, what you're talking about with the mixed groups. But I would also point out that they only do that with women. You know, when you ask a question and then you get unhelpful responses and things like, have you tried Googling it?
Yeah.
Or like just, they even get into technicalities when you ask something about ethics or whatever, like they just give you answers you didn't ask for. And I noticed that throughout my studies a lot as well, like sharing helpful knowledge, they did that, but just among them.
Yeah.
And there was like really this bro culture where it's like, oh, I'll pass on a job to this friend of mine and that friend of mine, and I never thought about the women.
Correct.
And I mean, at some point, of course, like I did meet some guys who were actually nice and realized that, and you know, who read about feminist theories and everything, and they're, oh, we should really change, and they started sharing resources with me. So some of them I can definitely defend in like my best knowledge, but yeah, I think like they do that, but they did it among them. And now we started doing it among us, which is very important. But I wouldn't make it, I mean, I wish it wasn't so much about gender, or also like just on that note that we're also including trans people, and you know, it's just the men who want to remain between themselves, and that's okay. But maybe we already overtook them, or at least those guys that don't want to share resources.
No, that is true, but I did not mean it in general that it is no problem. But on a travel context, I genuinely see it as an advantage for myself in where I go. But no, as far as publishing and stuff goes, oh God. But you know, I can't really talk from a man's point of view, because I don't know how many things they send out and how many responses they get, or how often they're then ignored and ghosted. I don't know. But from a lot of male photographers I know they're not all bad, but I think they're possibly by nature sometimes pushier, or they don't take it so much to heart. I take things extremely to heart if I'm being ignored again, and then sometimes I then let it go, even though I know I shouldn't, but I cannot bother somebody again possibly with this thing. And I think this is also a difference, how many of us women, maybe how we're brought up as well, that we shouldn't be that way. But of course, it is not better to be a woman photographer at all if you want to be published and if you want to work, of course not. But for traveling, I think it's an advantage, and I would like to take the small advantage I can.
And I actually do think it's an interesting aspect that you say you have access differently, no?
Yeah.
That's like a, yes, please.
I actually have something for Chennai Photo Biennale. I think for all the people who are documenting our events, maybe next time we could have all of them as women also. Instead of men documenting our films and making our films this time. As it happened, next time we can have more women. I don't know, behind the camera as well. As we exhibit. It'd be quite funny. And I know you will do it, so like,
Noted.
let's pass on money within ourselves also.
Absolutely.
And that's just for you. I mean, one of the founders of Chennai Photo Biennale, Gayatri, she is also co-founder of a female photographers collective called Color Collective,
Oh, wow.
which has the similar idea of saying you kind of pass on jobs, so you make sure someone from your network gets it.
Really helped as someone, at least for me, when I started getting into the space of photography. I think like I could agree with a lot of what you're saying is the community that you want, and I think at least in this context with Gayatri, when she founded the Color Collective, it has done that, and it's amazing. I've got to know so many new people through it, and like you said, the questions they're not related to just jobs. It goes beyond that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely we should have more of that.
Definitely, I think so. Did you want it?
Any other questions or comments?
Anybody want this?
Otherwise, I mean, you have like 50 minutes left to go and see the amazing show at Lalit Color, which you can actually make. It's like 12 minutes by foot from here.
And we have 2 clubs to hit you if you don't. Which we wouldn't use. No.
Yes, please, of course. It's actually.
Thank you.
So the people that you photograph for traveling diet and for the do you ever get a chance to meet them again, or do you keep in touch with them afterwards? Do you see the changes in whatever the situation was or their circumstance was when you photographing them versus how does it change over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but this girl, she's now, she was a little girl when I met her. She isn't anymore. She's now really, well, grown up teenager, big teenager. And I had a coffee with her brother a few weeks ago. It was really very nice because he's studying law and he's not enjoying it very much. So we were kind of brainstorming where we could go and what he could do. His other brother, medium child of that family, works at a bank. And the parents both have jobs in Germany now. And it's just very nice to see a progress, how things go. And they are one of the families that have a German passport, and they were Palestinian. They came from Syria, but they are from a Palestinian refugee family, so they never had a passport at all, only ever like a permit to stay. So it's the first time they have a passport. They are so proud, and I was so happy when that actually came through and worked out for them. And with the farm workers as well, I mean, one of them, I organized the job in the village where my mum lives, so I've seen him very regularly, and only just 6 months ago he changed to something closer to where he lives now.
In terms of the first project, actually, so I'm assuming they're all hired by someone, right? Farmers who are coming. So was there any issue with permission, or are you going in and talking to the farmers? Was there anything like, why are you doing this, or those sort of questions?
Well, yeah, that first farmer followed home. They didn't like it much because they really were exploiting their people. When, they were only paid the hours they actually work. So on a rainy day, they got no money at all, and they had to pay a lot to come over. They had to pay to stay in a box, basically. And he really was mistreating the people, also using them for housework and for absolutely anything, and paying way below the minimum wage. Not good. So of course he had a problem me coming back again and again. So
how did you navigate that? Like, how did you get to them to have conversations?
well, I know which way is to his house, and I know which way is to them, and we then also met up somewhere else for the interview. So we just or I saw them on the field. But the other ones, the good farmers, they're very welcoming. They like you to come because they're having a good relationship with them. One of them has a lot of Romanian workers. He learned Romanian by now. So he can talk to them in their own language, and they feel treated with respect, and he feels treated with respect, and they all, it's a collaboration. He knows he needs them, and they know that they have it good and that they earn good money, and that betters their life and the life of their children at home. So, like anywhere, they're good and bad ones, so the good ones, of course, you can photograph.
With this, I think we come to an end of a very long, very photo-intense weekend. The next one is Oh no, come to all the openings this week. You don't even need to wait for the next weekend. On Thursday, the next 2 main shows open at Egmore Museum. What Makes Us Click and Love Light. Love and Light. Both amazing shows at the Government Museum. And if you don't do this yet, do follow either Chennai Photo Biennale or the Goethe Institute on Instagram, and then you'll get regular updates on all the amazing upcoming events. With that,
Open call at Mia Mall. Open call exhibition.
also on Thursday.
Open call on the
Yes.
So, block your Thursday. You need to do lots of venues, very different exhibitions. The open call entries are going to be exhibited at Viarmo, where you can also see Vanyiram Birtagal, in case you haven't seen that. Basically, it's all about photography right now in Chennai. So please do join us for as many events as possible. Give us feedback and enjoy the very few last hours of your weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you.